The deadline in this sector for voluntary presentation at the experimental center is 6 o'clock.
You're supposed to be an artist. Use your imagination.
Oh, thanks a lot. I'm all out.
What's happening, everybody? Motivation Monday. Shelton J. Think About It Radio. I have a great interview lined up for you guys tonight, and I hope you sit back, relax, and enjoy, and take notes because you're definitely gonna learn something. I have Mr. Samuel Burnham, contributor, member of the 1 million conscious and conscientious black contributors and voters, the million for short. Mr. Burnham, how are you doing this evening, my brother?
I'm doing great tonight. I'm happy to be here, and I definitely appreciate you for having me on.
I appreciate your time, my man. I appreciate your time because we are about to talk about some great stuff that is needed for us, the people. We talking about we the people. We talking about we the people. Can you dig it? Man, Mr. Burnham, as you are very intelligent brother, very smart, very heartfelt in the things that you want to do for the community, and I just had to have you on the show, man, to talk about the million, if you will. And I'm gonna let you just go and explain it to the people, man, and introduce yourself and go through all that because they hear from me enough. The floor is yours, my brother.
Okay, thank you for that introduction and speaking so highly of me. I try my best to live up to that, and I'm gonna continue to try my best to live up to it. For those that may just be tuning in, I'm Samuel Burnham. I'm a contributor member, and I always put the word contributor-member because we've got to contribute to what we do as black folks. I'm a contributor member of the 1 million conscious and conscientious black contributors and voters, as our host said, the million for short. This movement was created because there's a need for black people to be self-reliant and protected. And there's things out there that we see going on that are not conducive to allowing black folks to be the steerers of our own ship. And one thing people should learn, rather, when they look at the history of black people, African people, and I will use black and African interchangeably.
Yes, sir.
I, for one, believe that we are an African people, regardless of the identity crisis that the enslavement process from Asia and then later on from Europe created upon us. We are an African people, and we don't necessarily waste a lot of time dealing with those of us that have an identity crisis. We assume that they're not there yet. For those of us that without an identity crisis, number one, this movement's for you. I can give a brief synopsis of how this movement began. After I briefly introduce myself.
Yes, sir.
I'm an electronics engineer by trade. I've done some time experiencing life like most folks. I graduated high school, became an electronics technician in the Navy, eventually got out of active duty and went to college, got married in that order, finished college with an electrical engineering degree. And like most folks, I went to work. Have varied experience in that field, and I don't want to spend too much time talking about myself because one thing we want to do as the million is to motivate and uplift our members in what we do here.
Right on.
Because I was always raised with a certain level of consciousness to be a black person in America, and I always had three things that drove me in life. My parents raised me as Christian, and without getting all up into the details, I am a Christian brother. But in addition to that, my African-centeredness, my Pan-Africanism, my practical black nationalism, and explaining that doesn't contradict that. And that's what's going to take me on into the rest of this. The three things that drove me is my, man's past and present relationship with God, the past and present condition of African people and technology. Those three things that I had a curiosity for ever since I was 10 years old put me on a path to eventually meet the people that would allow me to join this movement. And those people in particular are Baba Amasika Jayuka and Baba James Klingman.
Shout out.
Yeah, great. And so I'm going to pause for a little bit and let that sink in. The 1 million has officially started in September of 2014. But it has its roots in something a little bit older. Baba Jim Cleman, a prolific activist for the economic empowerment of black folks and writer as such for over 20 plus years, did an article called "Calling Black Nationalists to Account." Calling Black Nationalists to Account dealt with people who considered themselves nationalists, and we'll get into the different types of nationalists, which Baba Amafika Gayuka can explain in detail as well. These people were black folks that believe, hey, we need to put black folks first, race first, etc. And as you know, and as a lot of us black folks know, we're used to a lot of talk. Brother Kleeman isn't about talk. He's dealing with a health challenge as we speak, and he's putting in more work than most people that got a full good deal of health. So that's one thing we have to remember. So back in 2006, as a result of calling folks to an account, he crossed paths with Baba Amafika Gayuka, and a movement to bring back black was formed in 2006. And an offshoot to that, the Black Nationalist, the Nationalist Black Leadership Coalition, the NBLC, was given birth from that in Kernersville, North Carolina in 2007. Both of these initiatives were severely undercut when people were distracted by Barack Obama's possibility and later certainty of becoming president. What I mean by that is people assumed, especially our people, that there was no need to have a black agenda.
We made it. We made it.
Yeah, we made it. Black faces in formerly white places.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. they just put a black face on it.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And so they found out that not only is the office of the presidency something that's not what it's cracked up to be, they and in some cases rightfully were not pleased with the president not publicly offering to give us, as in people of African descent, black folks, any particular demand that we wanted.
Yes, sir.
But in a way that can be viewed as he was loyal to the people who were able to contribute to him getting in. As we know, the LGBT community, the Hispanic community, the American Jewish community, Israel, various communities that he spoke to directly and gave them public assurances, public promises, but notice that we were not given the same public assurance and public promises that were given to the other communities. Now, this is not to bash former President Obama or anything else. This is just to tell the truth. And without getting too upset with him, we have to look at us and say, did we place any demands? Did we even organize to the point of how we place demands?
Expectations.
So that's why, yes, expectations. Did we manage our expectations? Well, in general, we haven't. And so rather than this be about whether Obama was good or bad for us, which too many pro-black folks engage in, what needs to be looked at is, regardless of who is in political office, what bargaining power do we have to force them to the table, to get them to see that we have demands that need to be met.
Exactly.
And that we demand to be treated like human beings and demand to have access to any and everything that this country has to offer from a positive perspective, due not only to our enslavement in this land, but due to the fact that we've earned it several times over, more so than I would say any other folks. And on that note, that's one reason why the Nationalist Black Leadership Coalition and the movement to bring back black faltered, because people kind of got distracted. And that was 2007, 2008, you know.
And it worked, though.
Excuse me?
The distractions worked. The distractions
Oh
work?
yeah, it worked. A lot of people fell off. And even though I can go into extreme detail on the history, let's just say that it was a mainstream brother that wrote an article that ended up in Root magazine about President of Black America. A concept, believe it or not, that Amafika Gayuka had already mentioned earlier in the Nationalist Black Leadership Coalition days. Well, this brother openly said that, and even though some people may say it was rhetorical, I will leave the intentions up to the brother who said it. It revived within us, those of us that were around and affiliated with Amafika Gayuka and Jim Clingman, and especially them, a renewed interest in realizing that everything has its time. And when you have mainstream brothers that are considered mainstream, sisters that are considered mainstream, actually publicly mentioning this, knowing the frustrations, etc., of our people and the police shootings, etc., then the time has come to revive some of those ideals. But as always, our elders, which they are our elders, Amafika Gayuka and Baba Clingman, both of them have learned, as we all have learned from past and present practices that do and don't work, some more and less effective. So what we've done is we've created a council of elders, and some remain unnamed for their own reasons. We organized, and I guess you could say as of September 2014, learning from what happened in the past, including the recent past. We formed originally the 1 million black conscious voters and contributors, but we had to switch that around to voters being last, and the word conscientious was added eventually because there's a difference between conscious and conscientious.
True.
Conscientious deals with you acting on the consciousness that you claim to have. In other words, there was plenty of sisters and brothers and everything that's doing negative stuff that's not uplifting the community, or else being selfish, narcissistic, that have the ability to do for the rest of the community and don't. And there's those who are conscientious, where it motivates them to actually take action.
Very true.
And taking action is where the conscientious came in. And that was added eventually as well. And so that's why our name was changed to the 1 million conscious and conscientious black contributors and voters, rather than the 1 million conscious black voters and contributors.
Still has power to it, though. That name, that name says something. That name says do something. It's time to do something, right? Be a part of that 1 million, conscious and conscientious, action. Take action. I think that's what it's about, though, because we've been talking for years about the things that we want and the things that we need and the things that we steady asking the same people that's telling us, no, we're not going to do that for you. So we have enough resiliency and brilliance as a people to do for ourselves, to do what we need to do. And we just have to bring those like-minded people together that's willing to do it. And that's why I love what you guys are doing with the organization, because you're bringing those like-minded people that's not just about the conversation, but about that action also.
Yes. And that's why I'm glad it's a good segue into me cutting the history short. But before I cut the history short, to do it in the right way, I want to remind everybody that you can go to www.imoneofthemillion.com. And when you click on About Us, you begin to learn more and more about our history, of our co-founders, our co-conveners, and eventually you also learn of some of the people that are less named but are extremely just as important. Sister Monica Williams, Brother Donnie Bradford, Brother Lenny Chisholm, who's doing a killer job with cash mobs, which is basically helping black businesses get infused with cash instantly, just like you've heard of the term flash mobs. He's our state organizer for Minnesota, who's just killing it out there. When you go to that website and click on About Us, one of the first things you will see in that